and we actually have a spot on the appraisal that says where we analyze the contract, and then we also analyze the listing. So we actually have to say, so the lender knows, hey, the contract price is much higher than the listing because they received multiple offers. There's a backup offer. These prices are escalating, and that way they aren't questioning why our value is so high. So it helps us pass on that information to the underwriter who's looking at this, kind of solidifying our point. So yes, it's very important for us to know, and we do need to know that, and we do consider it.
Yeah, I would definitely say, and I tell my office this all the time, as an appraiser, I don't know this. I only get the contract that is given to me at the time of the order. So talk to me, tell me that you had, 57 showings and 13 offers, because I don't know that. I only know what is right in front of me. So if you could please tell me that, it absolutely helps me justify the fact that it sold for $50,000 over the list price.
Great, thank you. Allison, can you explain why some lenders or appraisers allow weather holdbacks and others don't, and what the precedent on this would be?
That is truly a lender thing. Each lender gets to do their own thing. If some want to let it go and not have an issue with it, they're fine with it. The lender is the investor, so it is up to them what they want to do with their investment, which is the house, or with their money. So, on that one, I tend to, when I know that this is something coming with an RE10, that, there's like painting that needs to be done or something, reach out to the lender, that loan officer, have them talk to an underwriter and find out what the protocol is gonna be for that situation, and just kind of be on top of it. But absolutely, there's no right or wrong. It's to each their own. Each lender gets to do what they want to do, and they're all different.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I've always wondered why some lenders did and some didn't. It's absolutely not our call in any way. As Allison said, it's completely lender driven. But I called a friend of mine who's a lender because I wanted to kind of get to the bottom of it, because I've had one where they had to paint a house, and it was down in Spangle, and it was during the middle of the winter when we had like 3 feet of snow, and they had to paint it, and I had to rush down there where the paint was still wet before it peeled off, because it would have peeled off or gotten snowed off by that afternoon. It's ridiculous. But he said that every institution, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, all allow weather holdbacks across the board. It is different lender policy. And he said every loan officer should be able to do it. And what he sees happening is the ones that aren't doing it either don't know how to do it, or they're pressed up against a time crunch. So let's say it's closing in 7 days. There's a process they have to go through to do this holdback. They don't have enough time to do the holdback. So they'll just say, nope, it has to be done. Or they're just not willing to do it. It just depends on the lender. But it's possible in every case, but whoever your borrower is using, they're going to be the one making that decision.
And I would like to say that it is the underwriter, it is the lender's call. We're not calling it out saying, you need to do this. That people always think, underwriters come back all the time with stuff. It is not me calling it out, and people just assume it's held up in the appraisal, so therefore it's the appraiser. And that's just not the case.
Yes.
Thank you. Michelle, since our market is moving so fast and appreciation is going at what must be a record pace, many of the comparable homes seem to be behind the market. Does this get considered by the appraisers?
Well, yes. So yes and no, I guess. It's kind of it depends. So when I do an appraisal, it's a little microcosm, it's a neighborhood. So when I'm doing it, I do a market trends analysis for that particular neighborhood. And if prices are appreciating, you know, by some percentage annually, I will make what we call a market conditions adjustment or a time adjustment to our comparables. So we're using, if you're using dated comparables and a time adjustment is warranted, which honestly, to be honest with you, if you're using sales that closed in the last 3 to 6 months, generally it's not, but sometimes it is. It really depends on what area you're in. So we will adjust those comparables up. And same thing in a depreciating market. It can go either way. Right now, obviously, everything's going up, but you're also are capped out with your highest sale. So, you know, a lot of times I'll have realtors meet me at the house and, you know, give me their listings, what they think are comparables, and they hand me a stack of listings. Well, listings don't count. Yes, they count in a way that we consider where the market's going, but a listing is basically a wish list price, not a real price. It's not a verified price. So we're a little bit limited. Yes, we adjust for time if warranted, but we're limited, maybe capped out at our highest historic sale. Unfortunately, we're dealing with historic sales, and that's just how appraisals work. So we're kind of stuck with that.
Totally agree. It is what it is. I tell people that all the time. It is what it is. I can't make it something that it's not. And I only can use the data that I have in front of me. And yes, listings are wish lists. You know, pendings are helpful, but it's, as we know as realtors, pendings don't always pan out. They fall apart at the end. So I can't truly use it as a reliable source, but absolutely, we need to come up with the data though to show what our adjustment is. So we still have to, there's a lot of work behind that little adjustment that everybody just wants us to throw on there. It's going up by 20%. Okay.
I saw it on the news.
Right. Yeah.
And Zillow said.
Sure. Great. Allison, when you get an appraisal request, do you see the closing date? And if so, does that come into play when you determine when it will be done?
So that is not really how it works. We have a middleman involved. And so they shoot us this request, like, we have an appraisal, will you accept it? We want it by this date. And currently it's like, yeah, no, that's never going to work. Here's the date I can actually get this done by. And this is the amount it's going to cost. And so then we send it back to them and they say, okay, fine, that will work. Then, because I don't do purchase and sales anymore, but when I get into it, I do see in the contract what the closing date is. But that is not the initial date that's presented to me when I'm taking the offer. It's totally what the middleman is trying to get it done by. So that's why I really encourage people to start ordering their appraisals as soon as they have the accepted offer, because we're so far out. I mean, if it falls apart, you can cancel, but to at least get in line, you know, normally we would wait until after home inspection and we go through all that and we all agree, but now we've wasted a week or two. And so it's better, I think, to at least get that process going from the get-go. And you can always cancel an appraisal, but that's easier for me to do is say, oh, great, that one's gone, than me try and squeeze in yet another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with Allison. That is how they come over. They come over with a due date that they request, and we assume, since we aren't seeing the contract at that point, that that is a viable due date. The problem is the middleman sometimes isn't as accurate as everybody would like, and they'll have the due date after the contract date. Well, we have no idea that this is happening, so we're accepting the order based on that due date because that's literally the soonest we can get it done, because we are back to back, booked out weeks. And, you know, like she said, getting in line is as fast as possible is important, because rushes aren't really possible. When you're back to back out in the field doing inspections all day, there's no space to fill in an inspection because you're already booked 5 days a week, and then night times and weekends you're doing the paperwork part. So rushes are really difficult because there's just no space, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would also say that it isn't, people just assume that I show up, I walk through your house, I take pictures, and I run back and type up a little something. The typing up part is what takes 8 hours, and that's for each single appraisal. And when I've got 15 of them sitting on my desk, I don't know where you think I'm going to rush you into.
Yeah.
I mean, because everybody in front of you is also in that same dire need. So
yes. Yes.
And that'll be a good segue. The next question that's on your guys' list was kind of answered already in a previous answer. So we're going to skip to the next one that kind of works into that whole rush question. Let's go, Michelle. There's rumors that if you pay more for the appraisal, it can be done faster. There's rumors that they've been paying up to $1,200 for this. Is this actually happening where people can pay more to get it done faster?
Yes, it's happening. Not often, only when it's a really dire circumstance. And part of the problem is, yes, they can pay more to be shoved up the line, but sometimes there's literally just no, I mean, I've been offered $2,000 to do an appraisal as a rush, but they needed it in 48 hours, and I couldn't make it happen because I couldn't take off the board people I'd already scheduled. So I said no, but I'm sure somebody else did it. So yes, you can pay more, but I wouldn't, unless it's a really dire circumstance. That's pretty spendy. I wouldn't recommend it. And yeah, we're doing it, but it just kind of it depends on your schedule and where it's located and what it is. You know, it gets really complicated.
And I will say, I mean, we all know that there's bad apples out there. And I've definitely seen some appraisals that had rushes, and I don't think it's doing you any favors, because the 2 that I saw were horrible. I'm just like, why would you pay for this for one, but why would you pay extra? And I think you're kind of getting you're not getting what you pay for, because you're just paying someone to hurry it up. And I don't think it's doing you any favors, but that's just my opinion, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I said only dire circumstances. People are doing it quite a bit, or they're just asking for a rush. I get asked for a rush probably 3 out of 4, you know, so you can't rush every single one. And now everybody, I guess these lenders and AMCs have been like making it just the way they do things. Like, oh, this is a rush. It's like, they can't all be a rush. Then it's just the same as them all coming in normally.
Can I chime in real quick on Lisa Biondo's question about why does waterfront cost more? Appraisals are done by how difficult the property is. Obviously, if I have a subdivision house that is in a tract and I have lots of comps, that is not very difficult. It's not going to cost me much, and I can get it done quickly. Waterfront is all about the front foot. And so that is very detailed. There's no waterfronts are the same. And so appraisals are done based on the difficulty of it. And that's where the fees come from. So it's not that they necessarily, it's not like there's a universal spread for all appraisals. Everything is based on difficulty.
Yeah, and I wanted to answer Carol's question if I could too. Yeah. Hi, Carol. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jack. So the middleman, Carol, It really depends. It's complicated. In 2008, when the market crashed. And
Michelle, will you tell us what the question was?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Carol asked, who is the middleman? So basically, in 2008, when the market crashed and they set up Dodd-Frank, lenders couldn't order appraisals directly from us anymore because appraisers got blamed for the market crashing due to loan officers supposedly influencing and pressuring appraisers to inflate appraised values. We all know that's not why it happened, but that's fine. So they installed a middleman called a management company, or an AMC. And not everybody uses AMCs. The real rule, how it worked, is if you have a separate entity ordering the appraisal who isn't connected to the loan officer, they can do that. So some banks have in-house appraisal ordering desks, and they have a panel of appraisers and they order it straight from the bank. Most of them go through hundreds of different management companies that we have to deal with. They all have different rules. They all have different ways you send them the appraisal. It's pretty overwhelming, actually. And you have to be on the panel of all these different management companies, and they basically rotate through the panel and send you the appraisal. And then they all send it differently too. Some do blast emails. Well, they're sent out to every appraiser on their list, and you have to bid, and they look for the cheapest and the fastest, but they spend 2 weeks looking for the cheapest and the fastest. So they've just wasted 2 weeks hunting down a deal. And the reason they do this is they get a piece of that appraisal fee that you're paying. So if they can get an appraisal, let's say you're charged $900 for an appraisal, and they can get the appraiser to do it for $500, they get $400. If the appraiser wants $850, they only get $50. So they're hunting around to make more money on their AMC fee. And it's really a disservice to the client, but that's how a lot of them work.
The other one is done by a round robin. And so then it sits on each one of our desks until we accept it or decline it, or it just bumps out and goes to the next person. So that is also kind of time consuming as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you. So Michelle, I'm going to direct this one to you as well. It's a purchase and sale question or type question. So could you explain how clearinghouse works and give us some history regarding this setup and procedure?
Okay, so that's what I was just explaining. The management company is the clearinghouse, basically. So I will say in a little more detail, it's just not the ordering system that is complicated and is a holdup. When we send the appraisals back in, they have somebody who is completely untrained, who they just basically hired, to check the box, who's looking over our appraisal and making sure it checks all the boxes before they send it on to the lender. So it's getting held up going both ways. For instance, I had one last week. The agent had the property staged, and this management company sends the appraisal back to me. They took 2 days to look at it, and this was a rush. And no, I didn't charge a rush fee. But they looked at it for 2 days, sent it back to me and said, you checked the occupancy box wrong. You need to say that it's occupied, not vacant, because we check whether it's occupied or vacant. So I sent back, it's vacant, it's checked correctly, it's staged. Well, they held it up for 2 more days. So 4 days it sat there before it actually got to the underwriter at the lender. And then they need time to review it. So that's happening quite a bit. And they're sending us back what they call revisions. And it's because they don't know what they're doing. So we're getting these ridiculous revisions, and then we're out in the field. We get back at night, we're responding, and then they take 2 days, and it's just ridiculous. I just don't even, we have no power you know, to make any of those kinds of changes. It's really frustrating.
Totally agree. I get the AMC I use, the first step of that AMC is automated. So if I shoot my appraisal in and I haven't specifically put periods, like I always use the example, US Bank has me do it, US Bank, comma, capital N period, A period. And if I don't have those periods or it's not capitalized, it actually shoots it back to me. And I don't know this. Sometimes it takes 5-6 hours. I'm already gone. I'm off to the next thing and I'll come back and see it sitting there. Or it goes in, it sits there, like Michelle said, for 2 days. They come back and say, oh, could you spell out avenue? It's like, really? Okay. And then I ship it back. To me, those are just them buying time because I really have no idea how that makes a difference. But that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Sure. Thank you, guys. And I'm going to start weaving some of the group chat questions just because they kind of are relevant to things we're already talking about. So I'm going to start weaving them into the conversation we're already having. And then we'll work our way through the rest. But part of that with the AMC question is, how are reconsiderations viewed, and do they go through the AMC before presented to the appraiser?
I mean, it does go through the AMC. I don't necessarily think that there's anyone at the AMC who's, they just ship it back to me, asking me these questions. I feel like this is the part where I know there's that horrible stigma that realtors can't talk to appraisers, and you can. I prefer that you show up and, like Michelle said, when you show up with your listings to show us where you came up with this value, at least I can see what you were trying to do. Albeit I probably really might disagree with you, but at least I already know going into my report where your mindset was when you listed it. But when I get those comps back, you think it's a comparable. It is my job to show whether it's comparable or not. And there's a really good chance I probably already looked at that comp and decided why it is not a comparable. And so I will shoot it back saying, sorry, that's not comparable. Now, I do need to say that, you know, realtors do need to stop trying to defend their client by saying that, look at, see, it's worth this, when the house across the street that you think is comparable is obviously not even the same house, but you're trying to do good by them by coming up with this value. Sometimes I need you to step out of your realtor shoes and look at this through appraiser eyes. You guys have the exact same comps that we do. We don't have different comps. So I need you to look at what's actually sold when you start talking to buyers and sellers. That's my preacher box on that one.
And not only sold, what I see a lot, like I had an agent a couple weeks ago who left me some comps and they were all like $50,000 less than the subject. And she just extrapolated price per square foot and added to it to come up with a value. And that's not how it works. You can't, I mean, maybe that's how you did it and come up with the price, and the price was right. I'm not saying she was off value-wise, but we have to have verifiable, provable comparables that we're sending into these lenders. And kind of as a guide, this isn't hard and fast, but you want them sold within the last 6 months. You want them within a mile. You want them, you know, within 15% of the price, plus or minus. You know, we're bracketing size, we're bracketing, you know, bed, bath count, site size. We're having to like bracket all these elements separately. and then adjust for them and prove how we came up with these adjustments. We might do it by doing paired sales. We might do it by linear regression analysis to come up with our contributory value of price per square foot. It's much more complicated. We don't just have a list of what everything costs. So you try to get as many comparables that are as similar to the subject, style, size, age, everything as possible, and then work from there so you have the least adjustments possible. Like Allison said, you can't just, if you've got an 800 square foot rancher, you can't use the 2,000 square foot 2-story across the street. It's not the same thing, even though it's across the street. So, and as far as reconsiderations go, I'm always open to it. I know a lot of appraisers aren't, but I'm not perfect. I'm 100% willing to take a look to see, as you all know, I don't know why this is, or maybe this hasn't happened to you, but the MLS, when I type in my search parameters, it comes up with different sales every time. I'm like, how is that possible? So sometimes something might slip through the cracks just because it's not pulling in to the search parameters and I'm not seeing it. So I am totally willing. I think how the order of it should go is the agent or the borrower or whoever should let the lender know, hey, we don't think this is right. Can we look for reconsideration? And give the comparables, because you can't just like, hey, I want a reconsideration without something that shows why it should be reconsidered, like why you have a better idea of what it costs than I do. So you give these comparables to the lender, they can send them off to us through the AMC, and then we can take a look at it. And I have reconsidered, not on a sale. I've actually never come in low on a sale, knock on wood. The way things are going, I might have to, but it hasn't happened yet. But I have on refinances where I thought it was, agreeable, and I could make it happen. But some appraisers aren't as open. So you're dealing with whatever appraiser you get, unfortunately, and some are more relaxed and flexible than others.
100% agree. Definitely I saw a few questions that popped up. One was on multifamily. Do we consider rental income? Yeah, on every appraisal, there's actually the cost approach, the sales approach, and the income approach. 9 times out of 10, especially on the Idaho side, the income approach is much harder because a lot of our rental data isn't disclosed. But when you're doing a multifamily, absolutely, the income approach is a definite way to get a value for sure. And then there was another question about, no, I totally forgot something.
Sorry, I think I have most of them written down, so if you don't answer it, we'll get it here.
Go ahead, Michelle.
There is a question here about peeling paint. Let me read it. There are times when it seems that some appraisals call certain items and others don't. We had an FHA loan and there was obvious peeling paint and it was never called. Also, there was a window that was completely cracked and it wasn't called. Who decides what should be called? And are there universal things that will be called for certain loan types? So it's the appraiser's decision. Unfortunately, not all appraisers are up on the
FHA guidelines.
Yeah, right, FHA or VA guidelines. A cracked window doesn't matter. Lifting, peeling carpet doesn't matter. Peeling paint always matters every time. So the person probably just didn't notice or forgot to call the peeling paint and you got lucky. But listen, I'm calling peeling paint every time. I'm pretty lax about everything else, but I actually had to take a remedial class from FHA. I did a split entry that had one board unpainted in the back. And they looked at it and said, I didn't call paint. And I said, well, it's not chipping and peeling. And they said, we don't care. There can't even be a bare surface. and I got sent back to school for FHA.
So Michelle, on that, is it, so I don't call peeling paint if your house was built in 1990. Are
I
you
don't either.
specifically talking about lead-based paint, or are you talking all peeling paint?
So I'm trying to say this without getting myself in trouble. Technically, FHA and VA want all peeling paint.
Okay.
I personally don't worry about it. I don't even look or consider it unless it's lead-based, pre-1978 lead-based paint.
Me
There
too.
are one or two appraisers in town that I know of that call it no matter what because they know that they can. I think it's not lead-based paint. It's not a safety issue. I don't call it, not ever. But if it's,
And I think that's really the most important part of both FHA, VA, but definitely all appraisals. It all comes down to safety.
yes.
It's, you know, a cracked window is fine. A broken window is a safety hazard. So that's the difference. You don't get hurt by a cracked window necessarily, but that's really what it comes down to, is safety.
Yeah.
Kind of tying back into what you guys were saying about talk to your appraisal, bring us what you have, we'll consider it. Is there anything else that agents can do to help you, or is that pretty much number one? Just tell us how you came up with what it is and we'll consider it, or is there anything else that would make your guys' life easier or make it faster or whatever, anything?
I'm a little bit different from Allison. I don't want the realtors meeting me at the property. The main reason is, for me, my schedule's tight and it's not exact. I'm going from house to house to house. So if I say I'm going to be there at 1 and I'm not there till 1:15 and I'm stressed out because the agent's waiting for me and then they want to talk and then I'm late to the next one, I prefer you just email them to me, or if you like hard copies, leave them in the house. But honestly, my preference is, and there are some realtors who meet me and that's fine. I mean, I actually enjoy it and I wish I had time to talk and chat. But I don't.
100% agree. Yes, I don't mind you meeting me there, but yes, I just want you to hand me something and get out of my way. I don't want to chit chat because exactly, I don't have time as much as I would like to. No, but I do like to know that there were multiple offers. I do like, and I'm fine with you leaving it on the counter for me. Just if I could have the information, that would be lovely.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, the best time to let us know that there's multiple offers, obviously, is when we're calling to make the appointment. And most agents do. But they always ask me if I care. So obviously you guys are wondering if we care at all. We do, and we want to know. So when we're calling you to set that time, that's the time to let us know.
I would also like to say that I do appreciate, and I tend to do it for my appraisers, is like I have a couple clients that are flippers. I like to know literally everything that's been done to the house so I can justify this new price over the old price. So if you could just leave me a list of like everything they've done, and I'll weed out what doesn't count, like landscaping, that kind of stuff. But just if I could give any morsel to the underwriter to prove how this has gone up in value, that helps me immensely, and it makes my job much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to go back to a question that Lisa had that she sent over to me from Lisa Lembeck. She wants to know, with rising costs of new construction and the new building codes that are coming into effect February 2021, how do appraisers keep in step with that for the cost approach of an appraisal? Are your benchmark numbers updated regularly?
Yes. So because I am a realtor, I don't do purchase and sale agreements, but I do tons of refis and mostly new construction or proposed construction. I get the builder actually gives me the spec sheet, the cost breakdown. I know everything that's going in. So I'm very aware of what the pricing is going up. I also know what their profit is, and it's not as much as people think it is. But yeah, the cost is going up. It goes up rapidly. And I am provided that actual hard costs. And new construction, 9 times out of 10, I do use the cost approach more than my comparable sales, because these are actual hard numbers that I have. And so I know that. I also know I can show that the market is catching up to this and people are willing to pay it, so I can justify it. But absolutely, I know what the costs are.
Yeah, I agree. Same here. I do lots and lots of proposed construction or construction loans for the builders where they're, they're handing us over their plans and specs and a cost breakdown. So we're seeing the cost of each item, delineated. And, we know that the costs are going up, obviously, because the prices are going up on new construction. So now I forgot what the question was, but yes, we know. And we are accounting for it, but again, we still are limited to historic sales. So every once in a while, I will do this not on a sale, but sometimes lenders on proposed, I'll throw in a couple listings, or I'll go way far away and find something that's similar to bracket that value or that price, that they think it is.
Or sometimes I'll use that same builder. Like if you have a custom builder, I'll use one of his other properties that may not be in the neighborhood, but like on the Idaho side, definitely a Rosenberger house you would compare to a Rosenberger house, and that's how you're going to get that value.
Exactly.
You guys, from Miranda, she wants to know what can be done to make the barriers to entry the barriers to entry to become an appraiser more reasonable, somewhere people would be willing to enter the industry. Do you guys have any ideas on that?
I have lots of input on that, being I've been doing this for 25 years. I actually think it's realtors who need to step up the barrier entry. Appraisal entry has gone up and down, up and down. You didn't always have to have some sort of degree. Then we went to higher degrees. Now we have lesser degrees, but you do need to have some sort of degree. It's a lot of hours to become an appraiser. And most people think, like realtors, you can take a class for 2 weeks and take a test. And that is not how it works. You take classes and you get a license to be a trainee. And then you've got to get your, 2,500 logged hours, which takes 2 to 3 years. And it's not the entry that is so difficult. It's finding one of us who will take you under our wing, because we are literally responsible for you. Every single report, just like our broker is responsible for us, we're responsible for the person that we are training. And I think most appraisers figure it out from day one. It's not a gray area. You either love it or hate it. And lots of people go into it and they leave it. It is not what people think it is. And so it's difficult to find people to train is really the harder part. And I don't know, maybe I'll do it as a retirement plan, but it's not one of those things that I plan on doing. I got into this by family, and I think most appraisers tend to get into it via family.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I think it is family driven for sure. Because the big problem for us is nobody wants to take on a trainee unless you want to run a big shop like Randy Burke does. He always has about 7 trainees on tap, but he doesn't really do any appraisals. He just makes a piece of that. So that's how he's making his living. But for us who actually do appraisals all day, you take on a trainee, you do less appraisals, you're sharing your work, you're sharing your client database, and after 2 years, they get certified, they're your competitor. So nobody's really willing to do that unless you're doing a favor for a family member or you're on your way out and want to help somebody out, honestly. So it's really, really hard to find somebody. And I get calls all the time from people looking, asking how to get into the appraisal profession, looking for somebody to, be their mentor. And you know, I don't do it. My brother doesn't do it. I don't know anybody who there's a few people in town who do it and I know who they are, but most of us just aren't willing to do it because of the way it all turns out. It's just, there's no benefit to us. It's all downside.
Yeah, it's incredibly time consuming. And the other part of it is just because you're a trainee doesn't mean the AMC is going to allow you to do the appraisal. I mean, so now you've got to get them on board with the AMC to even do appraisals. So there's that whole step in it as well.
Yeah, and a lot won't take a trainee work. So it's, you know, we would like the barrier to entry to be easier because we do need more appraisers, and we need more good appraisers and young appraisers. And, you know, we have ACOW, well, you're in Idaho, but Appraisals Coalition of Washington, they're, you know, in DC all the time trying to get legislations passed that makes it easier, but it has to go through the whole government system. So it either doesn't work or, you know, the wheels are turning pretty slowly.
And I think the process is great. I think that's what weeds out bad appraisers, is having to go through this whole process. I mean, I keep my license because it took me years to become certified. And so I'm not going to lose it, but it's not an easy process. And I think it's for a reason.
Thank you, guys. I have a question from Robin that kind of goes back to Allison. You were talking about the new construction, how you can compare homes from a certain builder. If the subject property does not have any true comparables within the 1 mile radius, can you justify using other like neighborhoods that are further out or further back from the 6-month timeline?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just have to tell the underwriter in very layman terms what I'm doing. But yeah, absolutely. That is exactly what they'll ask me too. If I can't find any, they'll say, go out farther, go back more in time, do a time adjustment, do something. But yeah, absolutely. It's just, you got to really make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Absolutely. Similar competing neighborhoods is where we would go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely 100%. And, you know, those are just how the lenders would like it to look, but we can go as far back as we need or as far out as we need. I kind of consider doing an appraisal writing a story. If you write the story of why you picked those comparables and why they, you know, are the best comparables, then usually you don't have a problem. You just have to, you know, make the necessary adjustments. And, you know, like Liberty Lake, not this year, but in years past, I'd have to go back almost 5 years to find 3 sales because I don't think, I'm not going to go to a different lake like Hayden or Loon Lake or, you know, Long Lake, not the same as Liberty Lake, right? So you would go back in time rather than farther out in that case. So yes, we can do all kinds of crazy things. And that's when you start getting the price going up because it, you know, how I look at it, at least, if I'm going to spend 20 hours researching and doing this complicated appraisal when I could have done 4, then they should pay me for how much it would cost me to do 4. You don't get that much, but you know, you're looking at time spent in your scope of work and the complexity of the property. So that is a lot of reason why the pricing happens the way it does.
Thank you. I have one question here that's kind of a situational question, so I'll throw it out there and you guys can answer how you see fit. The question is, I was always trained that an FHA and VA appraisal sticks to the property for 6 months. Recently had a listing that had a low appraisal, which happened to be VA. The deal fell apart and we relisted the home at the appraised price. The appraisal was shared with us from the first buyer, so we shared with the new buyer. The appraisal said the appraiser said they do not see those and would not look at the copy we sent. In fact, a new V appraisal was done only 30 days later with the new buyer, and it was lower than the last appraisal. How is this possible?
Yeah, it's your opinion. every appraiser has their own opinion. They have their own work process, but yeah, those are not shared with us. I've heard this rumor many, many times, and albeit maybe the lender holds on to that appraisal. I mean, it is their appraisal that they get. I mean, so maybe they're holding on to it, but it is not shared with me by any means, nor do I want to see it, because probably then it could sway me because I think appraisers I feel like we're equal. And so I don't want to undermine somebody, but I would rather just give you my own opinion. And yeah, it could be less, it could be way more, but I don't know that there's a secret club that appraisals sit in waiting for the next one to come along.
Yeah, we're always coming into a property fresh. We don't see any prior appraisals unless we did it ourselves. We're never seeing any work of anybody else. Unless, somebody hands it to us at the property, which, they can do that if they want to. But I'm a little confused. You said it was a VA appraisal, and I'm thinking, why didn't they do Tidewater? Why was there a second appraisal? There should have been Tidewater done immediately when it came in low, and an opportunity for comparables to be given back, and then maybe the appraisal adjusted based on those new comparables that the appraiser had to look at. Or maybe it went through all that and it didn't work, so they had to get a second appraisal. I'm not quite sure, but that would have been the first step. So if the appraiser came in low and didn't file Tidewater, that's a big problem. That's what should happen.
Kind of along those lines, we have a couple questions that kind of fit together with, you guys have mentioned, so mistakes can be made. There's the bad apples or some appraisers out there who aren't great. Is there a process to administrate those appraisers either out of the system or hold them accountable? And who holds appraisers accountable? Who do appraisers answer to?
Well, this is where it gets complicated with all the different management companies. So we're on all these different management company rosters. So every management company has a different roster. It's not like if you're an appraiser, you're on everybody's roster. You get invited to be on somebody's panel, then you have to fill out all this information, and then you get approved to be on their panel, and you're on the roster that they rotate through. So it would be the lender or the management company. The lender would probably take the complaint and take it to the management company. But from what I've heard, just, anecdotally, it's nearly impossible to get an appraiser off a panel. So unfortunately, I don't know if there's a lot that can be done about it.
Sorry, Michelle. I 100% agree with that. I've definitely heard it's very hard to get an appraiser thrown off. However, if it is an ethical, blatant mistake, absolutely. We have used PEP. We have definite guidelines that we have to stick to. We have ethics, just like realtors do. Yeah, you can go to the state and file a state complaint, and that happens all the time. And the state will take it up to decide whether they feel that that is legit or not. People report stuff to the state all the time, and a lot of it is more silly stuff like value. But if there's blatant, just really bad ethics, for sure you could go to the states and turn in appraisers.
Yeah, but if you're just going, hey, they're coming in low on my appraisal and I don't agree, they're going to throw that out. They're not going to consider it at all. I was in a class the other day and they said the state throws out about 98% of the complaints because they're frivolous, what they consider frivolous. So if you're going to go to the state, you better make sure it's, some ethical violation or something that really matters, because they're not going to take a look at it if it's just whining over value, honestly.
Agreed. And I feel that's the same with an AMC, because there are appraisers that sit on their boards as well, and they will also throw them out if we think they're frivolous, for sure.
Mhm.
Thank you guys so much. We're just about to the hour mark here for the meeting. So thank you everyone who added questions to the chat. To Allison and Michelle for joining us today. We really appreciate your guys' time and willingness to share your side of things, because it's not a side that a lot of people get to see. So it's great to hear your point of view and really understand the process a little better. If you didn't get your questions answered, feel free to shoot me an email and I can put together a list of questions that did not get answered. See if Michelle and Allison kind of give quick answers to those questions so that you have all the information you need. Stay tuned. We'll be starting back up our meetings again. We'll see whether we're going to ever do in person at some point, but we'll keep doing these virtual meetings. So everyone keep an eye out for those emails to register. We'll keep having topics that you guys benefit from and things that you're interested in. If you have anything that you'd love to hear a speaker talk about, please let me know. We're always happy to hear ideas. Your premier directors in your offices like to hear your ideas. And we also do have the ability to do the premier tours, virtual tours at the end of these meetings. We didn't have any for this month, but if you do have a listing you would like on this to share with everyone in future months, please send it my way and we'll put that together for you. So yeah, once again, thank you guys and have a great day.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a good day. Happy holidays. We'll see you next year. Will be our next meeting. So goodbye.
All right. See ya.